there anybody in the audience wanting to speak to this item? Welcome.
Good evening, Greg Neitzert. As many of you know, I was a big fan of Shaped Places. In fact, I campaigned for it. But there were a couple of issues. I did bring to you a year ago my concern that billboards under Shaped Places were going to be a problem, and it appears the situation on the ground has vindicated my concern. I would urge you to pass this ordinance so we can address citizen concerns. There is precedent for this. On May 23, 2002, Mayor Munson placed a moratorium on off-premise signs, which are also called billboards, by executive order, so a study group could be formed because there was concerns at the time. What came out of that was they expanded the minimum required distance from 300 feet to 600 feet. I believe with time and some tweaks we can find a compromise everyone can live with. There's a number of common sense changes that we can make that could make a big difference. Radical revision is not required to fix the problem. The root issue is that the commercial district classifications have changed under Shaped Places, and therefore billboards are now allowed in a much larger area than they were before. Under the 1983 ordinance, billboards were only allowed in the C2 commercial district. Most commercial zonings starting in the 1990s were in the C4 planned commercial districts, which didn't allow billboards. That fact alone relegated billboards to older commercial districts and corridors such as the central parts of Cliff Avenue and Minnesota Avenue. Now that commercial districts are classified by size in Shaped Places, the C2 and C4 districts no longer have the meaning they did before. As a result, billboards are allowed in areas of town they never were before. That's why you're seeing billboards on the west, east, north, south, areas that you never saw a billboard and you maybe never expected. There's a lot more technical details, but I won't bore you with that. I would say this to the citizens of Sioux Falls. This is your chance to have your voice heard, and I would urge you to take advantage of it. Call or email your city councilors, call or email the planning office, let them know what you would like changed. Be specific. Please understand that state law limits what we can do. We cannot ban billboards entirely. We cannot ban digital billboards. This was recently affirmed in the summary judgment issued by a U.S. District Court in Lamar Outdoor versus the City of Rapid City. That court overturned the portion of a referendum passed by the voters of Rapid City that banned digital billboards because it directly conflicted with state law that allows outdoor signage regardless of the technology used. We cannot discriminate or regulate based on content, but we can impose reasonable regulations. Possible reasonable regulations could include extending the minimum separation distance between billboards. It could be doubled or tripled, possibly. I would note that the Rapid City referendum also increased their spacing distance. That is currently under challenge in that lawsuit, and they haven't ruled as to whether or not that will be allowed. They went from, I think, 1,000 feet to 2,000 feet. Lamar alleges this amounts to a de facto ban on billboards, and the City of Rapid City disagrees. We could add minimum separation distances from sensitive uses such as schools and parks, add minimum separation distances from residential or at least single family, establish a minimum separation distance between an off-premise sign, a billboard, and an on-premise sign. An example would be the billboard directly adjacent to the Flowerama sign at 41st and Marion Road. We could allow billboards adjacent only to certain street classifications, for example, just arterials. We could allow billboards adjacent only to larger commercial forms. We could possibly define what I call corridors to allow billboards only on certain streets and defined areas. That would be much like what we had before. We could prohibit billboards from existing in or encroaching into any required buffer yard. We could limit the Board of Adjustment's power to vary the required spacing between billboards. Currently, we can reduce that spacing as much as we want. We could establish non-conforming billboard sign regulations that ensure at the end of their life they will go away if the existing sign violates one of the new criteria, such as minimum separation distance. With some common sense changes, we can make a world of difference. I would reiterate to citizens to make your voice heard, contact city councilors or the planning department with your ideas. We can't address your concerns if you don't make them known. I would encourage you to adopt this resolution. Thank you.
Greg, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is there anybody else who wanted to speak to this item? Welcome.